Welcome back at 7:13. And former President Donald Trump has been found liable for sexual abuse and defamation by a jury in a civil trial. His accuser, E. Jean Carroll, has been awarded $5 million in damages. His lawyer says this case is far from over.
Part of me was obviously very happy that Donald Trump was not branded a rapist. This was a rape claim. It was a rape case all along, and the jury rejected that, but made other findings. So we'll obviously be appealing those other findings, but they rejected her rape claim, and she'd always claimed this was a rape case.
So this is just one of the many legal woes the former president is now facing. Joining us this morning with additional insight is attorney Janos Martin. So good morning to you, Janos. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Let's talk about this, right? Because there's a lot of terminology that played out here, a civil versus a criminal charge. But let me begin with this, because I think that everything lays into this question and then falls into place. Jurors rejecting the rape claim, but did find Trump guilty of sexual abuse. So explain the difference here.
Absolutely. Well, this is a civil claim, so the jury had to find by preponderance of the evidence, that basically means 51% likelihood or more, that these claims took place. Now, they largely believed E. Jean Carroll's story. Her story is that she, ran into Donald Trump at a department store. He took her back, violently threw her against the wall, and then proceeded to sexually abuse her, and then the claim was rape her. They did, in fact, come back on the battery claim. That's the sort of violent act that Trump allegedly did. They also supported E. Jean Carroll on the sexual abuse claim, that he behaved in a way that was consistent with sexual abuse. And they did not find for the rape claim, which has a very specific terminology in New York, that E. Jean Carroll herself said that she was not 100% sure of as she sort of walked through the story. So I think the jury largely validated E. Jean Carroll's claims, even though they did not validate the rape claim.
Well, let me ask you this, though. So the former president, he didn't testify in this trial, but they did play some of his deposition for the jury. So let's listen to part of it, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the...
Well, if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
So, Janos, do you think that deposition actually had an impact on the jury's decision?
Well, absolutely. There's a speculation that Donald Trump himself would appear in this trial. He did not. And so this deposition, is the best evidence that the jury had to work with. And that word, fortunately, the way it just sort of hangs over the quote is really not helpful, I think, to Donald Trump. That Access Hollywood tape, we've all heard it a million times. It nearly cost him the presidential election. Here he has a chance to give some explanation for it, walk away from it. Instead, he says, fortunately, sometimes stars are able to get away with this kind of behavior. I think that had to have an impact on the jury. I think also the very aggressive cross-examination by the Trump's attorney, Joe Tacopina, of E. Jean Carroll, that kind of aggressive cross-examination can work if it gets the person in the witness chair to trip up and change their story. That's not what happened here. Instead, it made E. Jean Carroll come across as quite sympathetic. She was quite consistent in her telling of this story. So I would say between, the deposition clip and also the cross-examination, that's probably where the Trump team really fell short in this case.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Access Hollywood tapes. Let's go there, because Mr. Trump said this trial, after the verdict, he said it was part of a witch hunt, right? His attorney claims the judge was biased against the former president and that infamous Access Hollywood tape that you mentioned should not have been part of the case. So what's your take on that?
I mean, I think it speaks to, I think it's a legitimate piece of evidence. In terms of the Tacopina argument that this case was biased, the judge was a Clinton appointee, this goes back to some of the coverage that we did of the D.A. Bragg's criminal indictment of Trump. There's both a legal channel that's being pursued and a political narrative that's being pursued. And, it can be, one can be effective and the other cannot be, right? So in this case, I think in general, Trump's team had a very poor legal strategy in this case. But if you look at the national media coverage of this, how this is playing outside of New York, they're very much trying to make the claim that Trump is being railroaded in New York City. New York City is biased against him. The New York courts are biased against him. So that's actually part of the political strategy that Tacopina's been employing for months now.
So a verdict, yes, but this is far from over. Trump's attorneys, no surprise, are going to appeal. So how long do you think this process could take?
An appeal of a federal case like this varies, but we're talking average 6 months to a year, which of course places us right into the thick of either the Republican primary or the general election. Assuming that the Second Circuit, about 10% of cases in this situation might get overturned. So assuming that the Second Circuit does not overturn this decision, in theory, Donald Trump could appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court does not have to take this case, and if they did take it, it would not look at it till after the presidential election.
All right, a lot to discuss here. Janos Martin, thank you for being here to break some of this down for us. Appreciate your time.
Sure thing. Thank you.